defense. Plus, you has a good defense. Hendon Hooker put up 40. This offense can't be stopped. I somewhat disagree with that. I might actually, we're going to pick this game later, and this Sharp Felix dude, he might be right. I might be going with Tennessee, but I don't think it's just an easy, hey, Tennessee's going to win this just based on one performance against LSU. I think there's a lot of questions around what this game is going to look like. Colin talked about Will Anderson and Dallas Turner. I mean, I think they have the 8th ranked pass rush defense, right? And Tennessee plays very well against zone coverage, or I'm sorry, against man coverage, not necessarily zone coverage, which actually Alabama has been running. One thing I will say, Nick Saban, greatest coach of all time, knows when to make adjustments and throw that wrench at you to kind of like the Mike Tyson line. What do you do? How do you adjust when you get punched in the face, right? I think they're going to switch some things up. Can Hendon Hooker make those adjustments, especially as you mentioned, without Cedric Tillman? Like, that's going to be kind of the main question here. I know Brew McCoy and Jalen Hyatt are really good, but this is all going to fall on a guy who is getting first-round draft capital buzz as well, and Hendon Hooker. Like, what is he going to be able to do to lift Tennessee up to win this game? So I personally don't think this is a, like, equal matchup of Titans going against each other. I think Alabama, as long as Bryce Young plays, Alabama is clearly the better team, in my opinion.
Well, Colin, I want to ask you about that then. That's a great segue into kind of the last thing I wanted to discuss here. Alabama has not been Alabama that we've come to know. Really, the past 2 years, they have not been. You know, they haven't really figured out what their wide receiver rotation is yet. Early in the year, they couldn't really run the ball effectively. It seems like they've got that figured out by this point. The defense hasn't been as suffocating as sometimes we expect them to be. The offensive line, not quite as dominant. Are we just starting to see the tail end of a dynasty here? I mean, is this coming, this run that we've seen over the past 15 years coming to an end?
No, I don't think it's coming to an end here. I mean, they still have 5 stars at every position all over the field. They still have an incredible amount of talent, an embarrassing amount of talent. One of the guys who could barely even get on the field for them, Drew Sanders, is over at Arkansas, just absolutely wreaking havoc. And they're not really missing him that much. So they just have so much talent over there. Nick Saban, still the best coach in college football. He's still around. The offense has struggled for sure. And Alabama's definitely not playing their best football right now. I think once we get into November and they get Bryce Young back fully healthy, I think that's when we're going to really start seeing Alabama play at their best. I think Tennessee's very fortunate that they get Alabama right now because we are having these questions about it, and they are legitimate questions. Whereas in a couple of months, I think this is going to be the same Bama team we're used to seeing. I think these guys are going to be rolling. I still think they're, if they're not the national title favorite, they're second.
Well, somehow that's not the only top 10 matchup this week. We've got your Penn State Nittany Lions, Colin, taking on Michigan.
We are.
I thought it was Go Pride. I wasn't sure what they said.
Penn State on the road in this one. I'm not coming to you first, Colin, because you are just the most homerish person I've ever met.
That's not true. That's
my entire life.
Lies,
it's definitely not the guy sitting beside you there.
I didn't see any Penn State gear behind Colin. Yeah. Anyways, continue.
I don't know which one of you is the bigger homer. I really don't. But this game, I mean, as opposed to this Bama game, which could be a bit of a 35-30 finish, we might see 60, 70 points in this one. We might be lucky if we cross a 30-point threshold in this Michigan-Penn State game, right, Matt?
Yeah, both these defenses are incredible, and I think both these coaches are they are not aggressive at all in calling plays. Neither one of these guys really wants to challenge down the field. It's let's run the ball and let's play defense. And unfortunately, that kind of plays, I think, into the hand of both of these defenses. Michigan, 5th in scoring defense this year, so they possibly could get some turnovers as 80-year-old man Sean Clifford goes out there. But I think this is going to be a very short game. We'll talk a little bit about some of the plays in this game later in our betting segment, but I expect this to be a very much a defensive game. It's one of those games where it's going to be over in 2 hours because they're just going to keep running the ball. No incompletions to stop the clock. It's going to be 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. Someone will score a field goal, 3 and out, 3 and out, touchdown, 3 and out, 3 and out. It's going to be like a 14-7 game.
Well, let's just talk about it. Let's just talk about that now. Then, I mean, the game total, it was at 50.5 yesterday. I'm checking right now just to see if it's still in that ballpark. But I mean, I think you could even be comfortable if that drops, to 48.5 or something before game time. And I'm still probably tempted by that line. I mean, this is just Colin. Penn State does not. Neither of these teams moves the ball effectively consistently.
Yeah.
Outside of that Auburn game, Penn State really hasn't had an offensive glow up like maybe we thought they could this year. I mean, 50.5 feels very, very high to me.
Yeah, I definitely think that line is too high. I would be playing the under on that one as well. I have played the under in that one this week. Both of these defenses are very good. Now, Michigan's defense, and here comes the homerism in me, may be slightly overrated. I think they're very good, but I think they're slightly overrated. Michigan, 5 of Michigan's 6 opponents this year rank 99th or worse in points scored, and 4 of them rank 121st or worse in points scored. So they have been beating up on some very bad offenses. Now, the argument, are they that bad because they played Michigan? You know, a little bit of chicken and egg there. Yeah, a little bit of chicken and egg there. But I think both of these defenses, very good. Both of these run defenses, very good. Big question marks at the quarterback positions here. Both of these defenses limit explosive plays. The under is definitely the play here.
Has Penn State played anybody good?
That was going to follow up with. Yeah, Purdue's not a bad team. They're very Jekyll and Hyde. Yeah.
Purdue's a solid team. Auburn's still an SEC team. I mean, say what you want about them, but
so is Vanderbilt.
Auburn would be favored over all of the opponents Michigan has played so far. All of them.
That's probably true. I would also be playing the under. I wish Austin wouldn't have said the 48 point, because like all my notes I dove into for this game, it led me to like one line, which was 50, and that Penn State, they have actually struggled to run the ball since getting into conference play. And out of the last 8 out of the last 10 matchups against Michigan, they have not actually gone over 50 points. So I was going to bet the under today on that as well at the 50.5, because they have not gone over. Of course, this is the day that JJ McCarthy turns into like Patrick Mahomes, and he's going to light up the Penn State defense. But I would
Patrick Mahomes. I know, Patrick. JJ McCarthy. I know there was some. We talk fishy lines later here. His prize pick lines were like suspiciously higher than I thought they should be. Like, I think his passing yard player prop is like 230 yards on prize picks. I was like, he's hit that once this year. That feels really high, but this is probably the week he throws like 4 bombs and, Michigan walks out of here 27-13 somehow. I mean, this is a kind of game, like I would just be fine betting the under. And it looks like on DraftKings right now, it's a 49.5. This might be one where if I'm feeling really bold today, I maybe take an alt line and I take it even slightly lower than that. I don't know quite how low I would go, but if I'm feeling really, really bold, maybe sprinkle a little bit on that. Not, I'm not putting the house on it.
Yeah, I mean, I would feel confident getting this like down at under 48. Probably closer to that range, because it is in Ann Arbor as well. Yeah. So that's definitely a factor for Penn State going into this. It's going to be a lot harder for them to move the ball. That crowd is going to be rocking. They're doing a maze out, whatever that means. So Michigan is up for this game. So this is going to be,
like it's getting played in the corner.
All yellow. I mean, maybe it's going to be Field of Dreams.
Or maybe there's just like a thing you have to get through to get in.
Field to get in.
Yeah. You know what? Yeah. That's got to be what it is.
There we go.
That's why he's the lawyer.
Yes, we're always one step ahead here on the show. And that line's at 7, and we're going to talk about that later as well. We don't need to talk about that now, but that might feel a little bit high to me too. But
I've been saying that all week, but we can talk.
Of course you have. Everybody in Central PA has probably been saying that's a little too high.
It has, yeah. I talked
to other way around.
Talked to the guy at Sheets, talked to the guy at Wawa. Both of them said to take the Penn State in the points. So
look at you dropping just these Central PA hotspots, calling cultural iconography here. Sheets and Wawa, and that is basically beyond
the Amish lady behind the counter at Achenbach's.
All right, Colin, we get it. You are from
cultured.
Central PA.
You got it.
Yes. We get it. Oklahoma State, TCU. 8 Oklahoma State, 13 TCU. First off, 13 TCU. Is that like that came out of nowhere? They haven't really beaten anybody. That feels really. I don't know who I'd put above them, but 13 TCU, man. I mean, are they the 13th best team in the country here?
I don't know. I don't have the list of teams ahead of them or behind them, to be honest with you. So I think that they're a good team. Look, they're undefeated, and let's just be honest here. We know a lot of these voters don't pay very close attention to college football at times. I saw someone still has I was gonna call them the Anthony Richardsons. Florida ranked as a top 15 team in their poll. Like, that's ridiculous. They are not a top 15 team. I think a lot of it goes to the fact that they are undefeated. That offense has been extremely explosive. I mean, they've looked good in every game outside of they played someone earlier this season. I feel like that game was not as good as it looked on paper, but overall they've beaten everybody. I actually think they've got a good shot to go in there and beat Oklahoma State today. So why not? Maybe we need to get the perception out of our head that they were a horrible team last year and they might actually be good with Max Duggan, which is hard to believe, but Sonny Dykes seems to have that offense firing on all cylinders, even without Quentin Johnson. If Quentin Johnson all of a sudden gets involved like he did last week and starts playing that way, like, this may be close to an unstoppable offense until they play an SEC team.
Yeah, I mean, this is a battle of unbeaten. So it's not like these two teams have struggled. And just to give you an idea in the AP poll, Matt, of the teams right behind them, TCU's at 13, got Wake Forest at 14, NC State 15, Mississippi State 16, Kansas State 17, and I'll give you Syracuse undefeated at 18.
I wouldn't jump any of those teams over them. Maybe
they are 13.
Maybe Mississippi State. I think Mississippi State's really good, but
that Mississippi State lost to LSU by like 14 earlier in the. That is like, App State lost to Texas State. Like, there's some weird results based on Notre Dame losing to Marshall, but in terms of like a Power 5 team losing to another Power 5 team, that result feels like one of the weirder ones we're going to be looking at by the end of the year. Because that's killing their resume right now. If they won that game, they'd be 6 or 7 spots higher.
Yeah, easily. But that game was away. That game was outside of Stark Vegas. So they play outside of that again today. So we can talk about that a little later.
Well, TCU being led by Max Duggan here, a bit of a revival for him. We talked all off season, Max Duggan not very good. Chandler Morris coming for this job. Chandler Morris did get the job, got injured, and a tale as old as time here in college football. Duggan stepped in and probably not given this one back, Colin. I mean, what he's done this year, over 300 yards passing in 3 of his 4 starts here. Explosive plays. His completion percentage is the lowest completion percentage he's had is 69.7%. Like, he's clicking in this offense. I mean, what do we think of Max Duggan here?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, he struggled early in his career here, but I think the big thing is he gets Sonny Dykes as the head coach now. And Sonny Dykes' offensive system has translated in multiple spots. So he did well at Cal. He did well at SMU in his last stop there. And I don't think Max Duggan is a worse quarterback than Tanner Mordecai. I think they're probably about the same. And we saw Tanner Mordecai doing this exact same thing in this offense last year. On the Campus Life podcast between you and I, like before the season last year, we were talking up Tanner Mordecai as a guy for fantasy that you were going to want to go after, because Sonny Dykes' offenses just produce fantasy numbers. They put players in good positions. They always tend to have high completion percentages. They take the easy passes that are there that the defense gives them. And Max Duggan's operating that really well. So I think it's kind of a combination of, now he's a senior. I think he has 1 year left if he wants it. So he's matured as a player, and he gets Sonny Dykes' offense that sets players up well. He's got good skill position players. So I think this is just more on, the whole offense than just Max Duggan specifically.
Well, let's talk about one of those skill position guys, Quentin Johnston, a trendy, way too early 2023 mock draft, first round kind of guy. Early this offseason, he's physically, he is very similar to AJ Green, which is kind of a difficult physical comp to find. That's 6'3", 6'4", kind of long striding, gliding, strong at the catch point type guy, but he's never really dominated like an AJ Green type. He finally had a nice week last week there, Matt. 200 yards through the air, I believe 14 catches. He had the game-winning touchdown. QJ back. I mean, can he finally get some momentum from that performance?
Let's hope so. The one thing I'll take away from that was their toughest game and biggest win to this point in TCU playing Kansas last week. And who became the focal point of that offense? It was Quentin Johnston. I wonder if we are seeing a turning point there and like, okay, we saw him do it against the best again. Game to that date in Kansas. Will they do that again today? I'd be hesitant to believe he's 100% back, but if he goes out there and does it today again, then I do. And I expect him to. I think he's going to have a really good day today here against Oklahoma State's defense. As Colin mentioned, this offense is firing on all cylinders. And I think if they can get him going, again, they could be close to unstoppable because, in my opinion, if he gets things going, Quentin Johnston can be one of the best wide receivers in college football.
Well, the tough part is stopping. They've got him. They've got a couple other receivers that are good athletes, explosive athletes, and they've got Kendra Miller on the ground here, Colin. Yeah. Last week, not his best game, but he still averaged almost 5 yards per carry, 88 yards and a touchdown for him. He's gone over 100 his previous 2 matchups there, including their big win at Oklahoma the week before that. This is a guy that should probably be getting some draft buzz at this point, right? Like he's a legitimate, round 3, round 4 type running back prospect, which is pretty good considering those running backs, they don't tend to get drafted super high every year.
Yeah, I mean, the running joke over at Campus to Canton is I'm the everybody can have day 2 draft capital guy.
That's why I tossed this to you.
Yeah, I knew you were setting me up. Yeah, I mean. Yes, he absolutely should be getting some draft capital buzz. He's been hyper efficient 2 years running now under 2 different offensive systems. So at that point, you kind of have to think, okay, this is a sign that he's just a good running back. This is a really good running back class. Like this is a really good running back class. Last year saw 6 running backs get taken on day 2. This class and that was regarded as a subpar class. This is a good class. We could see 8, maybe even 10, given all of the other free agents that are going to be at the running back position this year. So can he get into that top 8 to 10 in this class? Yeah, I absolutely think he can. And if he's not right there, like you said, early 4th round guy too. So still some early day 3 draft capital if he wants it, because he can go back.
For anybody that's not really familiar, I mean, not a household name, Kendra Miller. Yeah. He's listed at 6 foot 220. So he's certainly got NFL size. He is a really good athlete. And you wouldn't really necessarily guess this, but I believe it was a minimum 100 carries last year, or whatever that qualifying threshold is. He led the nation in yards per carry last year at like 7.9, I believe. It was somewhere in that range. I mean, it was high. It was a very, very efficient season. And yeah, he outproduced Zach Evans, who everybody loves. So I mean, Matt, you have similar thoughts on him? He's a guy that through the process, should you declare like is a guy that you think would rise up boards?
Yeah, because not only because of yards per carry, Felix Sharp favorite stat, not predictive to the NFL. Just throw that out there real quick, according to our numbers guy Jarek Backus. But he's been extremely effective in everything that he's done. He's a guy that, full transparency, I did not think was going to be good. We talked a lot about him. We had some Devy calls earlier this year with our Devy team, and the 2 guys on our Devy team, Mike Valerie and Corey Pereira, were both like, Kendra Miller's good. And I was like, no, he's not. You guys know what you're talking about. They were right. Like, he has been amazing. And as Colin mentioned, we could see upwards of 8 to 10 running backs taken here on day 2, because I do think that's a real strength in this class. I don't see any reason why he wouldn't. Already NFL size. And if he continues producing at the rate he's going, he's also not a bad receiver as well. So I think he could definitely jump up into that, as Colin says, day two range. Why not?
Everybody's day 2.
We just want these kids to get paid. All right. Yeah. Well,
exactly. Yeah. I'm a player advocate here.
Yeah. Yeah.
You should become an agent, Colin. You'd be great.
You know what? If I could go back and do school again, I would strongly consider that.
Well, considering you just said do school again, maybe that is not a path that you
I went to public school, all right? What's that Felix always says?
I go back and do school gooder, and then I would do that. So I'm going to put you guys in the spot here. One last question on TCU. We'll pivot to Oklahoma State. Kendra Miller, do we have a NFL player comp, or just somebody that you think he kind of plays similarly to? Equivalifs, boys. Come on now.
I don't. I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
I mean, I don't like coming up with comps because you can always pick it apart in one way or another. So I think that's very tough to do. But, he's in the mold of, maybe like a Josh Jacobs, maybe not quite as good of a pass catcher, but, hyper efficient in college, good athlete.
There we go. Thank you, Kevin Garnett. Always here to let us a helping hand. I'm going to toss out the name Rashad Penny. I think he's kind of on the Rashad Penny scale a little bit.
Okay.
You think he's got that explosiveness?
I do. When he has that kind of first step, that next gear, I think that he can be that kind of player. And we've seen Rashad Penny be very, very good in the NFL when
first round draft pick.
And I don't think Meller will do that. That was stupid when it happened, and it looks stupid now. But this is how we learn lessons, folks. You take one Rashad Penny in the first round, and then you never do it again. So maybe. Oklahoma State, their opponent here. I mean, they're the higher ranked team. We haven't even talked about them at all. They're undefeated as well. A pretty balanced offensive attack, I think, is the way to talk about them. But Spencer Sanders, he'll lay a stinker from time to time. He hasn't really done it yet this year. Are we calling kind of in like the time here where we're like, this is going to happen sooner rather than later?
Yeah, I kind of think we are. We're like kind of right on the knife's edge here where like, okay, he's been good all year so far. No bad games. This is a big spot. It's at TCU. Could we see it in this one? I think we could, but TCU's defense isn't that great. So I still think that he's going to have a nice game, and he gets Jaden Bray back fully healthy. Jaden Bray was back last week too, kind of working back in from a hand injury that he had in fall camp, getting him back up to full speed. I still think Spencer Sanders is going to have a good game in this one. We'll see how it plays out there, but maybe that stinker comes a little bit later against, the Iowa States or, the Texas, like one of those teams, like with a better defense.
So here's the problem with that thesis, Colin. Spencer Sanders stinker comes after all of those sentences every single time. This defense isn't that good. They've been rolling. He's got his weapons. He's doing great. Matt, what are you thinking here?
I actually kind of agree with Colin here. I mean, TCU's defense is like 81st in EPA pass, which is really bad. I mean, that's like 40, 50 away from the worst school in college football. Math's not my strong suit.
That was good.
Matt's doing math, and Colin wants to do school good today.
Yeah, I should also go back and do school because it's not great here. My goodness. But no, I expect, because even if he doesn't do it passing, we've seen him. He struggled earlier this year passing ball. There was a game a couple weeks ago where he only had like 120 passing yards. But what did he do? He added a bunch of rushing and had a couple rushing touchdowns to help Oklahoma State win that game. I think he can do that here against TCU.
Bray coming back big for him. I mean, he had 9 targets last week. He only turned that into 2 catches. Like, was not the big day that you would expect based on that target percentage. But it was clear, like, he was a key part of that offense as soon as he came back. I believe he was tied for the team targets with Braden Johnson, I believe, also got 9 targets last week.
Yeah, I mean, you can't have enough wide receivers in the Big 12. They don't play defense. So, yes, big for Spencer Sanders.
Yeah, we've already seen one Big 12 game this week. That was with that West Virginia Baylor game. That was pretty high flying. Yeah. There. And then Oklahoma State's going to have to run the ball here today, too. I mean, I think you'd want to be careful how much I cannot understate this enough, how much I think you need to keep Spencer Sanders, like, sort of in check. Like, you don't just want to be like, okay, Spencer, pat him on the butt, go get him. Like, that is not a long-term strategy there for the Cowboys here at Oklahoma. It's not. So Dominic Richardson, they've got a couple other backs there that they'll rotate in as well. But I mean, they always have an effective back there. He's kind of the next guy in line here, Colin.
Yeah, Dominic Richardson's been solid so far this year. Not spectacular. He hasn't really been like a big play guy, and I don't really expect him to be in this one. But he's a guy that'll keep the offense on schedule, move the chains. Kind of like Jaylen Warren was last year. We're seeing him, have an NFL role. He's doing something with the Steelers there this year. So, I think it's kind of in that mold where keep the offense on schedule. He'll do exactly what you need, and he's not going to get you a ton more. But he may not need to.
USC, Utah. Let's head out west here a little bit. The Forgotten Conference. They play so late at night. Yeah. Some of us like to be in bed at 10, 10:30, like even 11. That's reasonable. Sometimes these games don't even start till then. So we don't get to always watch some of these guys. This is going to be a key matchup in determining a Big 12 champion here. USC undefeated, number 7 in the country. They've been hot. Utah has not. Lost last week. They've not really been consistent on a week-to-week basis here. The big question for them is going to be, can they slow down Caleb Williams, Jordan Addison, and these offensive weapons there at USC, Colin?
Can they? Yes. Will they? No, I don't think they will, because they do have a pretty good defense, but they play a lot of man coverage, and Caleb Williams is the best QB in the Pac-12 against man. And just Kyle Whittingham, and that defense just doesn't seem like the type that's going to look at that and say, let's play zone this week, because Caleb Williams is bottom 3. I want to say even the worst QB against zone coverage in the Pac-12. So if Utah makes the adjustment, yes, they could absolutely slow them down. We saw Oregon State do that. They slowed down this offense. I don't know if Utah's going to make that adjustment there. So I don't know if they're actually going to be able to slow them down. I mean, I think if they come out in man, I think Caleb Williams could pick them apart.
Well, they're going to have Clark Phillips, their top DB, on Jordan Addison. The reigning Biletnikoff winner, transferred over from my Pitt Panthers. Sad days. Phillips has been very good this year. He might be a first-round draft pick. Had a couple of interceptions 2 weeks ago, I believe, including a pick 6. Really, really good ball skills. I mean, you figure they're probably just going to stick him on Addison and then try to figure out the rest, because what USC, I mean, they are not that deep at wide receiver. Like, they are really, really looking for some guys behind Addison there. I mean, is there a chance that that's what happens today, Matt? They just limit Addison, kind of take him out of the game, and then figure it out from there?
Excuse me. That would be my goal, is to take out Addison and force them to go to Mario Williams and Brendan Rice, either of which I think are as good as Jordan Addison. I'm kind of with Colin here that I don't know that they'll be able to slow down this offense, but I also don't think that this offense has been as good as we've been giving it credit for. They've really struggled once they got into conference play, trying to put up points against Oregon State. They've gotten, my goodness, I'm struggling over here at the moment. They're outperforming their projected scoring margin by an average of 5.4 points a game, which my friend Chris Moxley tells me is not at all sustainable, and that is USC's offense. We saw them struggle against Oregon State. Realistically, if Chance Nolan doesn't throw 4 interceptions, they're going to lose that game. I mean, Chance Nolan was driving down the field on them to score. I think what this game is going to come down to is actually how good Tavian Thomas can be for Utah running the ball, because USC's defense is god-awful at stopping the run. Honestly, they're kind of bad at stopping everything. But I think if Utah can play a little bit of keep away Cameron Rising, who I think is a veteran enough quarterback to kind of limit his turnovers, which USC I think has really been living and dying on. If they get these turnovers, they've been winning the games. If they don't, all of a sudden it's a close game within 3 to 7 points. And I think Utah could capitalize on that. I don't expect this to be a high scoring game.
Utah's problem is going to be that they have not been effective running the ball like they usually are this year. Tavian Thomas, the guy that was supposed to be their leading running back, has been in and out of the lineup all year. It sounds like disciplinary issues. They sat him 2 weeks ago because they said that like his aunt died or something, and he was at her funeral, and like so he wasn't at practice. So they sat him. Like, I don't know what this staff is doing with that, but the guys behind him haven't been super productive. I mean, what do you expect out of this Utah offense today, Colin? I mean, the Cameron Rising, the quarterback there, a 3rd or 4th year guy, originally went to Texas, transferred over here. Is this kind of a wear the Superman cape today and hope he can pull something off?
I mean, I think that's what it might come down to, but I think the game plan that they're going to go into it with is use Tavian Thomas to take advantage of this subpar run defense, like Matt was saying. The USC's run defense is not very good. Their pass defense looks good on paper, but I think that's mostly because you can run all over them. So Utah's game plan coming into this should be give it to Tavian Thomas, feature him, run the game, control the clock. But if USC gets up, they may not be able to do that. And we may see Cam Rising need to put that Superman cape on. He might need to make some plays. And he can do it with his arm. He can do it with his legs. They have a couple of weapons out there. Valet, I think that's how you pronounce it, on the outside. And then Kincaid. Thanks. And then Kincaid at tight end. So they have a couple of options there in the pass game. So maybe we see it from Rising, but I don't think that's what they want going into it.
Matt, I mean, we're going to pick this game later.
Yeah.
But you think that you have a pretty easy time picking USC, or you really think that Utah's primed for an upset here? We're coming off of a loss. Like, is this a bounce back for them?
I don't have an easy lean picking USC here. I mean, if you just go to the Lincoln Riley effect, where you mentioned Spencer Sanders has a stinker here and there. So does Lincoln Riley, and let's be honest, so did Caleb Williams last year. He had multiple games where he really struggled. While he looks like he's taken a step forward this year, again, it's really just that USC defense. Like I know that Tavian Thomas has been in and out, but they're 119th in allowing explosive plays, 124th in EPA per rush. So, like, even if Tavian Thomas isn't out there, the backup running backs for Utah might be able to just run all over them. And allowing teams to extend the drive, so moving from third or fourth down and being successful on that and getting another first round, they're 118th in defensive success rate on that. Like, this defense is bad. They have not played in offense, and like, not that even that Utah is like this high explosive offense, right? I just think they're probably an upper tier offense in the Pac-12, but they're not even the top one. It's not UCLA who just ran all over Utah. Like, I think Utah is a competent offense. I really think we're going to see some serious struggles today from Utah. Of course, they're going to go out there now that we're saying all this, and I'm pretty sure Lincoln Riley and them are posting this up in the locker room, and they're just going to blow
They're definitely
Utah
listening.
out. Yeah, I know they're listening. I saw the text from Caleb just a minute ago. It wasn't pleasant.
Well,
but
he's in the chat.
Well, they're 3.5 point favorites in this game, regardless.
Yeah,
because it's in Utah. There, I mean, Chris would say he's probably leaning Utah. I think I'm leaning USC in this game, and I think I would actually lean USC money line if I'm playing this game at all. I don't necessarily love the 3.5 points, but I do really like, I'll just play the money line and get the slightly increased odds. What do you guys think on that?
Yeah, if I'm betting this game just like straight up by itself, I would take USC money line. If I'm putting this in a parlay, give me the 3.5 points. Just give me a little bit more margin of error there. But we'll pick this game later. I do think USC could win this one outright. But if you want to play it safe, that's why you take the 3.5. Because if it comes down to a field goal, you're still good.
Luke's in the chat. He said he took USC money line because he liked those increased odds. The other play that I think would be interesting in this game, 65-point game total. That's really interesting. We just talked, USC is allowing teams to extend drives maybe when they shouldn't be, and Utah has not been as dangerous defensively, but USC hasn't been as explosive as you would imagine.
Yeah.
I kind of like an under in this. I don't, I don't know that I would recommend playing it necessarily, but if you said you have to pick one, I like that under here. I don't know that I like that over.
I would take the under as well, because even though both of these defenses are bad, mostly against the rush, we saw that's what UCLA just tore. I know that Dorian Thompson-Robinson had like 300 passing yards, but it was mostly against the run that they kind of carved up Utah last week. Again, when you're running the ball, you're not stopping the clock. The clock's going to keep going. It's going to shorten the game up a little bit. Utah's pass defense, I think, could slow Caleb Williams down. They may rely heavily on Travis Dye and Austin Jones to go against this Utah defense. I'm with you. I don't think this is going to be a high-scoring game. I don't think it's going to be 42-38 or anything like that. I would also take the under. I could easily see this being a almost Utah, Florida earlier this year, where it's like a 27-24 teams driving down at the end of the game to try and put it to get the win. I don't think both teams get into the 30s.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would take the under there as well. I mean, we saw USC's offense against Washington State, against Oregon State, and it wasn't quite as explosive as we thought it was going to be. So, they haven't been putting up a ton of points. And then, like Matt said, this just feels like a game where both teams could run the ball and kind of shorten the game. So, yeah, I would take the under on this one as well.
Let's talk some Heisman futures here, guys. I know there are a couple other games this week that are bigger, and we are going to talk about them later, kind of in our betting section. So we're going to pivot away there. But I do want to talk Heisman because these odds are really starting to shift now. CJ Stroud, a prohibitive favorite, if you can call it that. Just looking at some of the odds we've got there currently. CJ Stroud this summer was at plus 200. He's now at minus 155. I haven't seen usually week 6. I don't know that you necessarily get a player that is that much of a favorite here to win it. Stroud doesn't play this week, so maybe you're not playing that this week just simply because it'll go down a little bit for you there. Some of the guys behind him, though, and just tell me if you guys like any of these. Caleb Williams is second. He's a plus 1,000. It's not terrible. If USC wins today, that he certainly will look better. Bryce Young, who missed last week, he dropped a little bit, probably predictably so. He's now a plus 1,400. You know who else is a plus 1,400? Dorian Thompson-Robinson, the quarterback at UCLA. Colin, you talked last offseason. This is not. I'm not gonna pick on you.
Oh, okay.
You said you thought last year was the year that DTR is what he's affectionately known as would break out. It didn't really happen. He was kind of inconsistent. This UCLA team was really hot and cold, but this year him and Zach Charbonnet have been, the catalyst of that offense. He's looking really, really good there. I mean, what do you think of DTR?
Yeah, I was a year early on him. He looks really good. He has a really nice command of the offense there, and he has UCLA playing really well right now. They are. I don't know if they're probably not the favorite in the Pac-12 right now, but that game USC UCLA is going to be really interesting especially if it ends up being the Pac-12 championship game. So, yeah, I mean, I don't see why he's not talked about more in the national spotlight. Like you highlighted the odds here, he's like fifth, but you haven't really heard a ton about him nationally yet, and they're on a bye this week, so it's not going to change. But I think you can make worse bets out there.
It's that pesky East Coast bias. He's completing almost 75% of his passes here this year. He's got 1,500 pass yards already, which has not been his calling card throughout his career. 15 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and then he is a dual threat kid. He's got 231 yards and 4 touchdowns on the ground here. I mean, is this a guy? Day 2, come on, Colin. Let's hear it though. But I mean, realistically, this quarterback class, we don't really have a third guy. He could be a third round pick. I don't know that he's a noticeably worse prospect than Malik Willis.
No, I don't think he is. And he was, he's doing it in the Pac-12 where, Malik Willis was, they were an independent. So, he played a schedule all over the map. But yeah, I don't think he's a worse prospect than Willis is.
I wish we had stopped trying to make fetch happen available right now, because stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. It's not going to happen. He's going to get drafted. He's not going to get drafted on day 2.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
You don't think? Malik Willis did.
Not. Yes, he did.
Let's put
you just admittedly, well, I said it. I said he's not a worse prospect. Do you think he's a better prospect than Malik Willis?
I do not think he's got anywhere near the arm talent that Malik Willis has. No. Is he? I don't even think he's as good a runner as Malik Willis personally.
I don't want to rehash this argument, but does Malik Willis actually have arm talent? He's got a very strong arm.
That's what I'm talking about, though. People consider that arm talent. Fine. Sorry. He has a stronger arm. I will specify the parts of the arm talent that I like. He has a stronger arm.
The parts that he's stronger here and here, but he's
the accuracy in the wrist not quite there. Yeah, I think overall Malik Willis is a better prospect. I expect Dorian Thompson-Robinson to get drafted. I do think that he is going to be. I can't remember the backup quarterback in Baltimore. Huntley, I don't think he's a worse player than Huntley, and I think that's what he could be. I definitely think he could come in and be a very good backup. I would think he could actually probably win you games at the NFL level, but I don't think anybody's drafting him to be their starter, which I do think in essence Tennessee kind of did with Malik Willis. And this is a guy we think we can develop into being our starter one day. He's better than Baker, Luke. Yes, Baker sucks. I hate to say that. Baker sucks. It hurts my heart. I don't know why you're coming for me this early in the morning. I don't know what I did to you, Luke, but clearly we got some problems. If I'm taking odds on anybody, it's actually the guy in third, Hendon Hooker, plus 1,400. Because if he wins this game or the game against Georgia, I honestly think it's between him and CJ. Caleb is interesting at 1,000. I don't think they make the playoffs, and I think they're a little bit more of a fraudulent team than they've been so far at 6-0. I expect them to lose a couple games. For me, it really just comes down to CJ and Hendon Hooker. And if Hendon can win one or both of these massive games that they have, I think he could easily vault CJ, because CJ's not going to have a signature win on his record. Remember when Matt said I still would rather have Baker Mayfield than Aaron Rodgers, because you know what?
Double down.
No. I'm doubling down for one reason and one reason only, and you're really going to love this. I would 100% rather have Baker Mayfield right now on the Browns than Aaron Rodgers, because we're done with them and we're moving on after this year. Aaron Rodgers is a drama queen, and he's a very good player, but no, he's not winning us a Super Bowl. Just let's move on. Let's get past Baker Mayfield. Move on to the who we drafted in the first round this year. Move on to the Will Levis era in Cleveland and continue to be bad. Like that's just our goal in life. We're just going to be the worst team in the AFC North forever.
You guys don't even have a first round pick this year, so that's fun.
I know we're drafting Will Levis in the second round. Like we're not taking him in the first.
No hope for Deshaun Watson?
Well, in the scenario, Watson wasn't there. It was between Baker Mayfield as a starter in Cleveland or.
I see what you're saying. Okay,
well,
this is an alternate.
You needed to give that added context there.
Sorry, yeah. So when we had this argument in the offseason, Deshaun Watson was not a thing in Cleveland. It was Baker Mayfield or Aaron Rodgers. There's a lot of talks about would the Cleveland Browns trade Baker Mayfield to get Aaron Rodgers, and I said I'd rather have Baker Mayfield.
Back to Hooker. I agree. I think Chris Moxley highlighted him after week 2 as a guy that I think he was at like a plus 4,000 at that point. I still think this is pretty good value on him. I like that too, Colin. Are we unanimous? All three of us, Hendon Hooker plus 1,400. That's solid bet here.
Yeah, I think that's the best bet on the board here right now, given the odds. And if you took it in the summer at plus 6,600, hat tip to you. But yeah, I think that given the schedule that they have, like Matt said, if he can get a signature win, if he can get a signature Heisman moment, it's him and CJ Stroud pretty comfortably, and you can get him at a significant discount.
J Mike says we all get a mulligan. I don't think that take deserves a mulligan.
I don't want a mulligan. I stand by what I said. Baker to the death. I'm gonna go run and get my jersey in the break, and I'm putting it on.
Oh, no.
Baker for life.
One other name that I want to toss out here, because I think this is quite frankly hilarious. DJ Uiagalelei is at plus 2,000 right now. Clemson is undefeated. They're number 4 or 5 in the country there, whatever. And somehow his odds have dropped since what they were in the summer. How we pointed that that was laughable where he was at. He was at plus 1,400 over the summer. He's plus 2,000 now. Clemson has exceeded expectations. He's been better than we thought he would, and he has dropped. That is just it shows how stupid the value was, that just everybody, it's a name that people knew. But that is just so mind blowing to me that this is what has happened with him.
Yeah, I mean, even though they're undefeated and he and the team have played better than we thought they would, it's still not been a great offensive performance, which I think is why he's dropped. I mean, to put it into context here, there's a running back over him in Blake Corum. I don't think we're going to see Blake Corum win it. And Adrian Martinez, who is, he's right behind him with
Heisman Martinez.
Yeah, Heisman Martinez, who's just slightly behind him in the odds, who is also practically a running back. I don't think the fact that he's down there with those guys shows us he's probably not winning this.
I don't even know if these are the best odds that Adrian Martinez has ever had to win the Heisman. I think at some point in the past, he's probably been better odds than this. And then he's Spencer Sanders running back version.
If you took him at the 12,500 he was in the offseason, are you not just rooting for pure chaos at this point?
No, because you're a Nebraska fan. Or a Kansas State fan. That's the only people that would have put money on him.
Still, you're rooting for absolute chaos so that Arkansas, I would be. If anybody shows me an Adrian Martinez ticket, I'll be rooting for you as well.
Yeah. I mean, that feels like one of Stetson Bennett's on the list, and somehow Adrian Martinez feels less likely. I don't know what you guys think on that.
I mean, I touted a couple, 3 or 4 weeks ago that I think you should put a money line in on Stetson Bennett, and then he's been horrible since. So I have a feeling now that I said that Hendon Hooker's about to go out there and get blown out today by Alabama.
Well, what about national championship odds here, guys? We'll talk those. Those are always shifting here as well. We've still got the top, 3-4 teams to make the playoff. They've been holding steady here. Bama, Ohio State, Georgia, Clemson is starting to creep into their range here as well. Are those probably accurate? Michigan's right behind them. I mean, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the country. I don't think there's anything crazy about that. But the odds to win the national championship right now, I think, are interesting. And I want to highlight a couple of names. Well, Michigan plus 2,000. If they win the Big Ten, I mean, they're in there, right?
No.
Yeah, so's Penn State if they win the Big Ten.
Yeah,
but I think that Michigan is not a better team than they were last year. And I think Ohio State is a better team than they were last year. I don't expect that same result. The weather also kind of played a role in that last year.
Stop it. No, I don't want to hear the snow game. I was sick. No, they got beat. There's no excuses. Ohio State got beat.
They did. They absolutely did. But, if this Ohio State's a better team than they were this year or than they were last year, Michigan's a worse team. I don't think anybody besides Ohio State's winning the Big Ten. And if you don't win that, I don't know if you get in.
Even if Michigan or in this multiverse that Colin lives in, Penn State wins the Big Ten, I don't think either one of them is good enough to compete with like Alabama and Georgia. I think it's really just a 3-team race, to be honest with you. It's those top 3 teams.
Okay, so let's pivot away from just win the national championship and let's just go to make the playoff, because there's some intriguing odds in here I think you can still play depending on what books you're looking at. The Pac-12 I think is still going to be a sneaky source of a team to potentially make the playoff, because there's a couple of teams that are better than we thought they were. If one of them can kind of run the gauntlet there, they probably have a pretty good chance. So I just want to toss out some odds, see what you guys think on some of these. So Oregon, depending on what book you're looking at, you can get them anywhere from like plus 6,000 to plus 8,000 to make the playoff. They got crushed by Georgia, so we're not taking them to win anything here necessarily. That might not be their ceiling, but to win the Pac-12 at 12-1 or whatever they would be, they'd have a couple of pretty nice wins on their schedule at that point. Is that you like those odds?
Yeah. 1,000%. Someone picked them to win the Pac-12 earlier this offseason. That did not look great after, I don't even know if you can call that a game against week 1 in Georgia. Yeah. But they do have a tough schedule come down the stretch. I mean, they get UCLA next week. That offense has been firing on all cylinders. They still have to play Utah as well at the end of the year. And then obviously if they go into the Pac-12 championship, you're looking at them probably playing a UCLA, USC, or Utah again at some point. So they're going to have to get through multiple teams here. I don't know that they necessarily have that. I'd be willing to throw a little bit of money in it just because the odds are so great. And there's a chance that one of these teams in the Pac-12 come out. For me, it would be them, or I'm trying to think of who else. Honestly, possibly UCLA might be the two that I'd be willing to throw money on to win the Pac-12 and possibly get into the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody remembers that, terrible game that they had against Georgia week 1, but, they've been a much better team since, and Georgia's a very good team. So, like Austin said, do we think they're on the caliber of, Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia? No, but are they the best team in the Pac-12? I think that they very easily could be. That offense with Bo Nix has looked really good. And you know who we didn't talk about for a Heisman candidate? Bo Nix. Dark horse for Heisman. He's having fun. It's a whole new offense. He looks good out there.
This is his year, baby.
First show, last show for Colin Decker. It's been fun. First show, last show.
One and done.
Those who shine bright shine what shortest or whatever it is.
Yeah. Brightest stars burn out the fastest.
Yeah. UCLA is the other one. They're plus 6,600. I mean, this is an undefeated UCLA team. They have a pretty tough schedule. They still have USC. I believe they still play Oregon, and I believe they have one other tough one on their schedule too. But this offense has been clicking. The defense has been solid. I mean, again, and I think the Pac-12 winner, I think, based on what's going on so far this season, has a very good chance, as long as they're not like a 2 or 3 loss team, to get into this playoff.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I would bet UCLA. Can I give one sneaky one?
Yes, please.
This season has been chaos. It's a lot of wins and losses we were not expecting for some teams. Alabama loses to Tennessee this weekend. And then Tennessee loses to Georgia later this year. And then whoever loses again to Georgia in the SEC championship. Pac-12, they all suck. Let's just pretend they all start losing. If you're willing to bet a little bit of money on a team that has a very, very outside chance
If you say Texas, I swear to
Bet
God.
the Longhorns, baby. Just throw $100 down. King Quinn is back. He's looked amazing. If they win the Big 12, guys, I know we've never seen a 2-loss team make the playoffs until you see it this year. And King Quinn, praise his name, praise him be, however you say it, I don't know. But anyways, he's amazing. Texas is going to the playoffs. I called it a couple weeks ago when they lost Quinn. It's going to happen. I'm throwing money out the window. I'm throwing it on Texas.
Did you just say throw a little bit of money and then say
It's
throw
$100?
$100? Like that's not like the
Yeah.
joke bet
Tomato,
amount. At least in
tomato.
my house. Maybe in your house it is, Matt. That's not.
My wife's asleep. So she doesn't know how much money I'm throwing away on bet. So it's not throwing it away. He's gonna win. And then what are they plus 20,000? What is it? Plus 2,000? I can't count.
I don't think it's
Count the zero.
I can't count the zero. No, it is. It's plus 20,000. 1, 2. There's 4 zeros there. There's 4 zeros on my phone. My eyesight is horrible. I'm dying over here. But there are 4 zeros behind that too.
math checks out.
20,000. Match. Thank you, Colin. Thank you. I do school well. He's gonna be good. I'm throwing money on the Cyclone Senate. Todd, get out of here. Get out of here. Do it. You'll thank me later. When all of you are just like making it rain in your houses, you're buying your wife's beautiful presents because you just won all this money because King Quinn took you to the
Austin,
playoffs
I don't want
and
to
made
tell
a
you
lot
how
of
to
money.
do your job, but you should have cut to break like way before my Bo Nix Heisman talk.
Yeah, this has gotten a little out of control. I'm going to take your advice. This time only, Colin. Don't do it again. We're going to head a break here, guys. This is Campus to Canton on Bettor Network. When we come back, we're going to try to get some calls in. We're going to talk some player props of the day, some betting, and then we'll get you out of here. So this is Campus to Canton. We'll see you on the other side of the break.
It's Moose and Keith with Mark Malusis and Keith Irizarry.
Moose and Keith with you. Let's welcome aboard right now, Iron Eagle.
One of the great stories that I have from doing notes on a plane, and you always get people looking over. They see color-coded uniform numbers, names, height, weight, age, background, hometown. And I had a woman sitting next to me on a flight, and I'm doing my notes, and she's kind of giving the look, then looking. And I can tell she's looking. And then finally, she'll say, so what is it that you do? Well, what do you think I do? I said, are you a wedding planner? I said, yes. I said, I have to put Rob Gronkowski at Tom Brady's table. I said, you know what? You're not correct, but it's the best answer I've ever heard.
That's great.
Corey Nando and Friends, presented by Mayo Media.
As far as fantasy life, fantasy executive, it's going to be a football life. The fantasy executive is probably going to be the best football life ever.
Who will be the guest? Everyone who was on yesterday, basically.
Yeah, everybody that's on yesterday will be the guest. Scott Engel, you know what I'm saying? Adam Rodas. Yeah, everybody knows people. Because what Nando, obviously you'll be there. You know what I'm saying? We'll go to the GST and shoot some scenes. You know what I'm saying?
That'd be nice.
We'll shoot some scenes in Midtown Manhattan. Antonio Brown can be on my football life,
That'd
right?
be nice.
Because that's a big part of my comeuppance as a fantasy analyst. Everybody, the football life, the fantasy executive is going to be for the people. When they do the football life on the fantasy executive, I'm going to be hands on.
Good. Yeah. You talking to you.
Lunch Money with Kyle and Ray, presented by FantasyGuru.com.
Cheetos or Doritos?
I truly love both. Cool Ranch Doritos. I grew up on Cheetos. I was a big Chester Cheetah guy.
Oh, nice.
But Ray, as I have aged into adulthood, I've moved away from the fun that is the Cheeto, and I've gone to the, more cosmopolitan Cool Ranch Dorito chip. So I'm probably a Cool Ranch guy. How about you?
I would go Doritos. I don't like Cool Ranch. The traditional, original, regular, whatever it is really good. But my favorite's actually the sweet chili, the purple bag. Oh, it's delicious. It's fantastic.
Yeah. The one that sucks, and I think we can all agree on this one, taco.
Yeah.
I know a lot of things, and I'm perfect at a lot of things. My Dorito trivia is a little shaky.
Okay.
A little shaky. But I think taco is the first flavor.
Joe Dirte?
Don't try and church it up, son. Don't you mean Joe Dirt?
Does this look like a piece of crap to you? You have them spinning tires, do you? You suck. You do. Sweet home.
Campus to Canton.
All right, and what you heard there was a real live conversation that Quinn Ewers participated in this past week. The mullet master himself, the king. We're back here on Campus to Canton on the Bettor Sports app. This is hour 2 here. We are with you every week, every Saturday, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. If we are not enough college football, guys, if you need more before you get ready for your games today, stick around here, 10 to noon, a homecoming show, Corey Parson, Tom Casale. They're going to get you ready as well. We're going to talk some betting here, guys. Big storylines this week. Talked about some big matchups. A lot of highly ranked teams, a lot of undefeated teams. Alabama, Tennessee, got Penn State, Michigan, Oklahoma State, TCU, USC, Utah. And we're going to talk some NC State, Syracuse here in a little bit. But it has broken news this morning that NC State quarterback Devin Leary is out today, confirmed. We thought that was going to be the case. We're going to be paying attention to see if that line is moving at all. I believe it was 3.5 points for Syracuse. That might shift a little bit. So if you're really feeling that line, I would get in now. I don't know that Syracuse is a significantly better team than them. So I'm not sure that I would, be taking that now and hoping it goes up. But what do you guys have any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I mean, I think that with Devin Leary out, this NC State team is really going to struggle to move the ball. I mean, we saw it last week when the backup came in, but I still don't feel that great about it. I mean, at 3.5, I'll wait till that line moves, and then I might even actually hop in on NC State because both of these teams are very good defenses.
Yeah, I would definitely be taking NC State with the points if you can, because Syracuse has not played a good defense. The best defenses they played have been Purdue and Virginia, and they both barely won those games. I think NC State has legitimately the second best defense in the ACC behind Clemson. And even though I do agree with Colin, like the offense might not be able to move the ball that well without Leary, that defense should, I think, be able to stop Syracuse for the most part. I think they can. I would almost even take the NC State money line because I think they can win the game.
So I'm slightly confused because that line just moved as I was sitting here watching it, the opposite direction of what I thought it was going to move. Syracuse was a 3.5-point favorite. Now they're a 3-point favorite. I don't know what all that's about, but I think, Matt, you just said, you might take the NC State money line. Maybe other people are leaning that way as well here. And that's what's going on. Odd, but we'll pay attention to that one moving. We'll chat about it here if we continue to watch it move. Guys, I want to ask you just real quick here. One player, if you have a college fantasy matchup, and yes, college fantasy exists for anybody listening. It's kind of what we specialize in at campustocanton.com. For those that are in their matchups today here, they have to choose one guy must start for you today. Is it Mr. Dirte himself, Matt, or are you going to give us a different?
100%. No, that's Quinn Ewers. You're starting Quinn Ewers. I know that they're playing Iowa State, which is a good defense. They're 26th in all passing yards allowed. They've only allowed, I believe, 7 passing touchdowns on the year. But Quinn is going to elevate this Texas offense. If you just take the 2 games that he's actually played, he's averaging 29.25 fantasy points a game, which would actually put him as a top 16 quarterback in college fantasy right now. I'm playing him, I think, with those weapons. Even though Iowa State does have a good defense, he will get you points today. Play the mullet master himself, Quinn Ewers.
Colin?
I'm going to go with a running back here in this one. I'm going to go with the freshman sensation, Jaden Ott, running back for California here. I mean, he's got 73 carries on the year here, 533 yards, 2 games over 100 yards, including a 274 and 3 touchdown performance against Arizona. He gets Colorado this week. Colorado is one of the worst rush defenses in every single metric. They allow the most rush yards in the country, 294. They have the worst defensive rush success rate, the worst defensive rush EPA, expected points added per play. They allow the 11th most explosive runs. I mean, this is just a dream matchup for a player who has been a breath of fresh air for that Cal team.
Yeah, I'm going to talk his prize picks lines are pretty low. He's got a couple of really soft ones. I believe he's like 101.5 rush yards on the day. I believe it's like 118 rush/receiving yards. That's a really nice line. I like that one. And yeah, Colorado has been a doo-doo at defensively this year. And that's probably about the nicest thing that you can say about them. No Chris this week. So we're not going to get, a 20-minute diatribe on all of these games, as I sit here in the background, begging him just to give us his pick and we can move on. But we do have some really good lines here for you guys. And I want to start with a lock of the week. We've got Southern Miss here. They've got Frank Gore's kid, and that's pretty much all everybody knows them for at this stage. But they take on Arkansas State. They're a 4.5-point favorite. This line has shifted a little bit. I believe it was at 3.5. But Southern Miss here, we really like this matchup. Either of you guys have thoughts on this?
No, not really.
Thanks, guys. Good job. This is good radio.
Hat tip to you,
Colin?
No, I don't really, to be honest with you. I mean, that's a sicko bet. That's a sicko line. And we're not Chris. I'm not going to pretend to be.
So here's the issue with Arkansas State. Defensively, they're terrible. They're one of the worst teams in the country, pass defense and rush defense. Like Southern Miss is not an overwhelming offensive presence by any stretch of the imagination, but Arkansas State can't stop anybody, and they've struggled offensively this year. This Arkansas State offense that we usually know, they've usually got pretty solid quarterback play for the G5 level. They've usually got a lead receiver or two that are at least going to go to the combine, maybe get taken in the 6th, 7th, or, a hot undrafted free agent kind of guy. I don't know that they have any of those kind of players on their roster this year. This is an Arkansas State team that I don't know that the books have necessarily caught up to how bad, mediocre, not good they are. I don't know which one of those words I want to use, but they're not what we usually think of as Arkansas State. So this line, it's shifting a little bit. I don't know how much higher I'd go than the 4.5, but we do like that game here today. How about, we talked about Michigan Penn State earlier. We're paying attention to that line, but 50.5, we're still taking the under on that one, right, guys? I think it's 49.5 now.
Yeah, I still think you're taking the under. We talked about it earlier in the show. 8 out of the last 10 matchups, Michigan and Penn State have played each other. They have failed to go over 50 points. I'm taking the under. We expect this to be a defensive struggle. Both these head coaches, neither one likes to be extremely aggressive in play calls. They both love to run the ball.
And this line has actually moved to 49 game total. So I don't want to say that we shifted that solely here on this show.
No, we
this
did.
morning.
Don't be modest. We shifted it.
But
the people are saying.
Many people are saying.
I don't know that I'd go lower than 48.5.
I
you've
don't
got
know
another
that
half point here to play around with.
I don't know that I'd go lower than 49 personally.
Fine. Be that way.
Hey,
I'm taking it to 48.5.
As some say, what is it? Safe money don't make
scared money don't make money.
Scared money don't make money, but you know what? Safe money don't lose money. So I'm just saying.
You just told everyone to put $100 on Texas.
That's safe money. King Quinn will not fail you. I promise.
Well, I'm not telling anyone to put $100 on it, but I'm saying I still like that line a little bit. But there's not a lot of room left here, guys. So
I like Penn State +7. I mean, Homer, whatever. But I do think that this is going to be a close game. I mean, last year, Penn State lost to them by 4. Now, it was in Penn State. It was in Happy Valley. But, again, Penn State is a better team than they were last year. Michigan is a worse team than they were last year. I think it's going to be a really close one. So I'm taking +7. I've been on that line all week.
We know. Wawas and
Sheets.
Sheets, there we go. I remember the other one. So. And the Amish lady behind the counter.
Man, you're missing out if you've never had Sheets before, Matt. Next time you're up here, they have some of them in Ohio. You've never been to a Sheets in Ohio?
No. Do you remember the last time I've been in Ohio we were in Canton.
There's one right down the street. I stopped to get gas on the way out.
I didn't drive. Well, I did drive my aunt's car. You picked me up. You could have taken me to Sheets. You and Barnabas picked
me
up.
It wasn't on the itinerary for the trip when we were in Canton. Take Matt to Sheets, and
that's your fault then. I blame you.
He'll try a schmegel and some schwings.
That sounds horrible.
Which is what they do with their food.
A sheets of pizza.
Best gas station fried food type stuff. It's like drunk. It's like the greatest drunk food ever. and I will maintain that till the day I die. Illinois, Minnesota, I think is an interesting line here, guys. This line has not moved yet. It's been sitting pretty steady. Minnesota 6.5-point favorites this week. Illinois is missing Tommy DeVito, though, their starting quarterback, which is really, really interesting. Like, how are they going to move the ball here? It's got to make you feel really, really good about Minnesota, who kind of laid a stinker against Purdue last time we saw them.
Yeah, it does kind of make you feel better about Minnesota until you realize how good Illinois' defense is. So Illinois' defense is one of the top in the country in pretty much any metric. And, Minnesota has Tanner Morgan at quarterback, who has been playing better. He is a competent college quarterback. But this Illinois defense limited Braylon Allen to like 2 yards on 8 carries. I think they can do the same thing to Mo Ibrahim. It's going to fall on Tanner Morgan. And I don't know if he's going to put up a ton of points. The over-under line in this one was like 39.5, I believe. It's one of the lowest on the slate.
Yeah.
I would almost even take the under on that one.
No, come on.
Don't Both these defenses
away.
are good.
We're trying to tell a lot of people to throw some money away today, I guess. I would not take the – go ahead.
Well, here's, to talk about how bad Illinois is. They lost DeVito in the middle of the game last year. Last week. So without DeVito, 0.8 points per drive. They did not score a single touchdown. They had 11.1% red zone success rate and 1.5 net yards per pass attempt and 3.7 yards per drop back. Like those, so they're basically saying every time they drop back, like if they do 3 straight downs, they might not be getting a first down on that. Like that might just be a 3 and out. Like they're really struggling to move the ball without him. Not that he's a good quarterback, but the alternative. I mean, we watched them. We saw what the alternative was last year in that Penn State game. We had to remind everybody how galactically bad that Penn State was. That game went to overtime, and that probably was
9
game,
overtimes, right? and the under, yeah,
it was so bad.
Yeah.
So the one thing with that, and again, I know Felix Sharp special stat here, yards per carry. They allowed Purdue, which is not really a good rushing team, in my opinion, 5.1 yards per carry. Chase Brown is legitimately one of the best running backs in college football. I think that they can put the game on his shoulders and have them win this game. So I still think the Illinois will be able to score because of Chase Brown. So take that back. Shouldn't have thrown some shade at Colin. You probably didn't want to take the under on this game. It's not going to be pretty.
It's a low line, but it might get even.
Yeah. Hey, look, we won the All-American parlay, betting the under on. I forgot what the other game was, but I do remember one was Air Force. Forgot who they were playing, but we were regardless.
Army,
the All-American. No, it was somebody else. No, they weren't playing.
It was service academies.
No, it wasn't. They were playing somebody else. Was it 2 service academies?
Yeah, it was.
You're right. It was. It was Air Force Navy. You're right, and we won. You're welcome, America. Yes, we're all in agreement. We're taking the under 39.5. Also, we should point out really quick, it is being reported that Bryce Young is planning to start today. So we said we would let you guys know that earlier in the show. Word is coming out that Bryce Young is expected to start today for Alabama against Tennessee.
And that might impact how we're betting that game here, right? I also got a producer in my ear saying Cedric Tillman confirmed out. On the other side of that, wide receiver Tennessee. Also in my ear confirming that Sheets is better than Wawa. So we've got all sorts of news coming out here this morning, guys.
I could have a 15-minute argument about that. So we should move on to the Sheets and Wawa conversation.
Are you a Wawa truther?
Wawa hoagies.
No.
Wawa hoagies, hands down, easy. If you want Sheets, you go to Sheets for the drunk food, the mac and cheese bites, the app sampler, all that kind of stuff. But Wawa subs are so good. I lived in Philly for like 3 years. The Wawa seeped in.
Oh, you're the worst. Yeah, no. We're not gonna. We've only got 2 hours here. I can't. It would take longer than that for me to just totally crush you, Colin. I won't do that.
Thank you.
Well, let's pivot to picking this Alabama game then. We've got 2 pieces of news here. Bryce Young, quarterback, playing. Tillman, wide receiver, Tennessee, out. This was a 9-point spread. I've been monitoring it all morning just to make sure it's not moving. As far as I can tell, it has. Oh, it's 8.5 now. So it has shifted slightly toward Tennessee. You guys were talking about you preferred Tennessee with the points. Is that correct? And why, Colin?
Yeah, I prefer Tennessee with the points here. I mean, at the time I said that, we didn't know about Bryce Young. I was kind of always operating under the assumption that he was going to play, though, just based on that line. And it was a shoulder injury. How effective is he going to be throwing the ball? Can he, make Tennessee respect him throwing over the top? They have some speedy wide receivers, so they can take the top off if he can get it to him. I don't know if he can. I think this is going to be a close game. So I don't think Alabama's going to blow him out. So that's why I'm taking Tennessee in the points.
Matt, you taking Tennessee in the points too?
Yeah. I mean, we talked about earlier in the show, Alabama, eighth ranked pass rush. They should be able to get after Hendon Hooker, but Hendon Hooker has played very good against man cover or zone coverage, which is what Bama plays. These wide receivers are good. You mentioned Brew McCoy, Jalen Hyatt. I think Hooker should be able to get the ball to them to make big plays. I'm taking Tennessee in the points because I do think that it will be a close game. I don't think Bama blows them out.
I think Bama wins this game, but I think the Tennessee covers. Yeah, I don't think that it's an 8.5 point game. And I'm going to be interested to see if that line shifts a little bit just from people not realizing the line was already kind of situated because Bryce Young was playing. Like, I don't know. It'll be interesting to watch and see if this shifts, and we'll keep you updated on that here throughout the morning. I don't like the game total in this one at all. It's 66.5. I don't have a good feel on either side of that. I could see this game being like 45-35. I could see this game being like 27 to 23 or something. Like, I honestly don't know. So I don't want to give you any sort of game total prediction, but Bama, yeah, I think Tennessee covers this. So we're all in agreement here so far. We've got Tennessee. We like Tennessee in the points. We all like the under 39.5 in that Illinois-Minnesota game, guys. We are at Campus to Canton again here on Bettor Sports. Download that app. Let us know if you disagree with any of these guys. Do you think Bama's going to come out here and just absolutely run through them? Let us know. It's possible. We might all look really stupid.
Todd V.
If that happens, Colin, you're never allowed back on the show again. Just saying. So
you are doing everything you possibly can to never let me back on the show again. And I think it's very obvious to the viewers that you're trying to stifle me and my creativity, and I don't appreciate that.
Digging his own grave over here. Just keeps going. Let's do some other games here real quick, guys.
Let Colin cook. Thank you, Luke.
We talked to Oklahoma State earlier, and we talked to TCU is a 4-point favorite. I'm double checking right now just to make sure that's still the case. They're 4.5 point favorites now, so that's gone up a little bit over the past 12 hours or so. It's at TCU. Oklahoma State, they've had a couple nice wins the past couple weeks. Baylor, Texas Tech, but they're not, really working on all cylinders here. How do we feel about that TCU 4.5?
I'm taking Oklahoma State money line.
Whoa.
I like Oklahoma State in this one. I mean, TCU, they're undefeated, but their two biggest wins came against a struggling Oklahoma team where, yes, they were beating them by a couple of scores, but Gabriel did miss the end of that game. He did get knocked out of that game. And then they beat Kansas, but they beat Kansas without Jalen Daniels for most of that game. Now, Jason Bean came in. He played well. Still a backup quarterback, though. So, they don't really have like a big win. Oklahoma State has beaten Baylor. They've beaten Texas Tech, two teams that I think are both solid teams. This line opened at Oklahoma State +1, so that's essentially a pick 'em. It's kind of swung in the opposite direction, which is not a good sign necessarily, but it creates some value there on the Oklahoma State line if you were on Oklahoma State, and that's where I'm at.
I don't like the money line, but that 4.5 points now is pretty tempting. I think I might take Oklahoma State in those points. I don't know, like you said. I mean, this is going to be a high scoring game.
Yeah,
I don't know that either team has the capability of blowing the other out.
No, I would actually take the over. It's at 68.5. I mean, we talked a little bit earlier. Oklahoma State 100th in EPA per pass and TCU 81st. Neither one of these defenses can stop passing plays, and I think both of these teams will be able to pass the ball. They'll both be explosive through the air and really on the ground. We talked about how good Kendry Miller was earlier for TCU, and that Oklahoma State's probably going to have to rely on Dominic Richardson. I mean, Colin mentioned that Oklahoma State has these signature wins. I mean, West Virginia and Kansas State say they kind of disagree with these great wins. The Baylor got blown out, or not blown out, but they got beat by West Virginia. They allowed 40 points against them, and Texas Tech lost to Kansas State. I don't think either one of those are necessarily signature wins. TCU, I think, is just the better team, and I think that they are going to end up winning this.
Yeah. I could definitely see that. Colin, what do you think about that game total? 68? You like the over? You like the under?
Man, I think this is going to be a really high-scoring game. Both of these are high-powered offenses. Both of these defenses are not very good, like Matt highlighted there. So I could see this hitting the over, but that's a high total. That's a tough line to hit. I feel like this is one of those games that I'm going to live bet it instead, and just kind of see how this game starts. And if, there's only 7 points or 10 points in the first quarter, that's when I'll hit the over.
All right, Colin. Well, since we've kind of covered that game, USC, Utah, we talked a lot about them earlier. Utah is still sitting at 3.5 points. Are you willing to be bold and throw some money away and take the Utah or the USC money line here, or Utah money line?
No, I'm not taking the money line in this one. I'm going to take USC in the points here. I think this is going to be a close game. We talked about it earlier. USC has a subpar run defense. I think Utah can take advantage of that. Caleb Williams, like I said earlier, best QB in the Pac-12 against man coverage, and Utah plays a lot of man. So I think this line, it feels right for me at 3.5. It's in Utah. So I think I have a hard time just picking USC outright, but give me USC in the points, 3.5.
Well, usually home team gets 3 points. So that's implying that Utah is technically, like, if they were on a neutral field,
pick
a half-point favorite. It's a pick 'em, but I mean, like, that, I don't know that feels right to me. And I agree that, Chris has lost a lot of money betting against Iowa over the years because they're just really freaking annoying. They get those lucky bounces all over the place. And he says it feels like the same thing, but I don't think USC is that, like, they can move the ball at times. They're not necessarily always effective, but I really think they can. So I don't know.
So, I mean, you say that they can move the ball at times, 5.4 yards per play the last week and 7.2 the previous week, where they have not necessarily put up a ton of points. 26% red zone success rate, which means they're not finishing drives or getting points. And then, as I mentioned earlier, they're outperforming their projected scoring margin by an average of 5.4 points a game. And I think a lot of that comes down to what you just mentioned with the turnovers. I just don't think that Utah is going to turn the ball over. I don't think Tavian Thomas or any of those guys are going to fumble it, and I don't think Cam Rising throws a bunch of picks, which I think makes this game closer than what USC has been. Last week, that was a close game with Washington State until their offensive linemen went out, and then they started having these turnovers. I don't think they get those today. I would not take the USC money line. I would probably take USC with the points because I do think it'll be a close game. I don't think either team wins. I'm almost even hesitant to take that with the points, but I do. Oh my God, Tommy DeVito is expected to start now. Apparently, that's
okay. Interesting.
They
saw what happened last. They're like, you can walk,
you can play,
you can talk. Okay, you're good. I did ask housekeeping when they just came by, and they said that they also like the 3.5 points. So.
Really quick. Who's more reliable than the Amish lady behind the counter at Sheetz or Wawa, whichever one it was for Colin, or the
no, it was Achenbach's. It's the Amish donut place. Yeah.
Sorry, Achenbach's.
Yeah. I would trust the Amish lady personally.
Good people.
She's
good people.
Yeah, well, she's got a lot of butter riding on this game, so
she has. Jeez. If they were watching this right now, we would have just gotten canceled.
Hang on, wait. Did anybody else's camera go off? Felix is going to be so mad at us. We got this canceled.
Is it Bill Burr?
I step away 1 week.
Is it Bill Burr that says the line? He's like, I don't. Oh no, it's John Panette, R.I.P. He was a comedian like a couple years ago. He says he doesn't talk bad about anybody except for the Amish because it'll never get back to him.
They're gonna find you. You still live in Central PA. I am no longer in Amish country. I'm safe out here, but Colin, not so much.
Amish Mafia. It's a TV show.
It's a thing.
Check it out.
Let's talk some upset alerts here, guys. You know, we already talked about maybe we're taking Oklahoma State in the points. Maybe we're taking USC in the points. Those are technically upsets. I'm not sure you're taking Penn State. I'm not sure those are necessarily upsets. We're taking Tennessee, but regardless, by the odds they are. Other games here. And let's finally talk about this NC State Syracuse game. Let's really get into this one. Devin Leary is out. We mentioned earlier. He is not playing today. That's been confirmed. NC State has been weak offensively this year. Syracuse hasn't really played anybody that's strong defensively this year. Like I don't know if we know what to expect out of Syracuse based on this matchup, but Syracuse is a 3.5 point favorite. And I believe it's actually shifted to 4. Is that correct? I'm double checking here.
Wow.
Oh, it's a 3. Okay. So Syracuse is a 3-point favorite in this. Do we like that? Are we taking NC State in the points? What are we talking here?
I'm taking Syracuse here, and especially since it moved to 3, I would have been on it at 3.5. I didn't like it. I like 3 a lot more. Like we talked about a little bit earlier, Devin Leary is out in this one. He's not going to be playing. The backup quarterback for them really struggled last week, and even with Dennis Leary, this NC State wasn't like a potent offense. They rank 81st in passing and 85th in rushing. Syracuse is actually a good defense. They allow the 17th least amount of pass yards. They're 16th in rush yards allowed, 9th in points allowed. Like this is going to be a defensive battle because NC State is a very good defense as well. But I think Leary being out is really a deciding factor here. NC State is going to struggle to move the ball, and Syracuse can take advantage of a play or two here. And so give me Syracuse.
I still think I'm taking NC State in the points. I think that defense is going to be a lot better than what Syracuse can actually do too. Again, I said earlier, I think they're the second best defensive team in the ACC in NC State. I think that front line will be able to slow down Garrett Schrader if he's running the balls. I don't think he's necessarily a good passer. And Sean Tucker, who's by far their best player on that offense. I expect it to be a close game. I wouldn't be surprised if Syracuse is able to pull off the win because Devin Leary is out, but I still think it's going to be a very close, defensive struggle, almost like the Penn State-Michigan game. I don't think there's going to be a lot of points in this game, and I think NC State will be able to keep it close because I think while, as Colin just mentioned, all those stats for Syracuse defense, I do think they're a tad bit fraudulent because they haven't played a really great offense up to this point. Not that NC State's is going to be either, though.
Luke in the chat here just asked, will Coach Ine, the offensive coordinator at Syracuse there, get a head coaching job based on what he's done? For anybody not familiar with his background, just, immediate background, he was the OC at Virginia last year when they had everything clicking there. Brennan Armstrong was talked about as a guy that maybe could play in the NFL, and then they've just totally fallen apart without him this year. I mean, he's an older guy, if I remember correctly, been around a while. I that probably impacts things, but I mean, do you guys think that he could be a hire this offseason?
Yeah, he was a guy that I had brought up a little bit earlier in the season, a couple of weeks ago in our in our Slack channel where we have for our company there, and CFF Nate Marquise brought up, one, his age, and 2, if he hasn't gotten a head coaching opportunity at this point, at the age of 63, he probably doesn't get one. Teams are kind of going towards the either offensive coordinator at a big Power 5 school that's been playing well, like Zach Kittley, I think, is on the fast track for that, the offensive coordinator at Texas Tech, or they're kind of going in other directions now, like the Zach Kittley offense that they brought from Houston Baptist. They imported that. Washington State imported the offense from Incarnate Word. They're kind of doing things like that rather than giving these older OCs head coaching jobs. Bill O'Brien is still an offensive coordinator. He doesn't have a head coaching job. So I think this is kind of the way the NCAA is going. Maybe he gets a head coaching job at like a G5 school, but would he even leave for that? I don't know.
63 is the new 43. We'll see. I want to wait and see how much more turnover there is. There's a lot of schools that could use some offensive influx into their team. So I don't want to say no, but Colin may be right in the fact, as he just pointed out. I mean, he hasn't gotten a chance yet, and he is 63. He's been in the business a long time. So,
if you need offensive output, why you could go get him, or you could just go get Tony Elliott. I don't know. Who they hired over him at Virginia, at Virginia Tech Virginia, and they're despicable this year on offense, just atrocious. It's an affront to football everywhere. It's terrible.
It's almost as bad as Iowa.
Where's the offensive coordinator? Tony Elliott or Brian Ferentz?
Brian Ferentz.
Brian Ferentz. Yeah, it's
so this is how bad it is. It's not even a discussion. It's not even a discussion that Brian Ferentz is worse. That's how bad it is.
Yeah, not looking great there in Iowa. All right, guys, let's talk some prize picks. Let's talk some player props. This is something that we do a lot of at Campus to Canton because we are a fantasy website. And that is, we do betting, we do DFS, we do fantasy, we do some draft stuff, we do all of it. But player props kind of falls right in our wheelhouse. We're partnered with Prize Picks. Promo code C2C gets you a deposit match over there. And some money off a membership with us, $29.99 off any membership.
One of the very few Prize Pick promos that I've actually seen where you get something with it besides a deposit match. You get $29.99 towards a membership. That gets you a free membership if you want, or it can get you $29.99 off of any of our other memberships. So you're literally losing money not using promo code C2C.
Well, Colin, if you're literally losing money, well, literally win us some money. What are some lines that you like today?
Oh, I'll win you some money. If this wins you money, DM me on Twitter. Let me know. My favorite line of the day here is my good buddy Jackson Dart, quarterback for Ole Miss. He's a guy that I've been a big proponent of. I still like him here. I'm taking the under on his passing yards here or less, 214.5. It seems like a low number. He's actually only hit that number once this year. And that was last week where he had 448 yards passing against Vanderbilt. Now that's a little bit, I don't want to say fraudulent, but it's misleading. They trailed for most of the first half in that one, Ole Miss did, which was not expected. So they had to throw the ball more than they normally do. And this is one of the most run-heavy teams in the country, 6th or 7th in most rush yards. They want to run the ball. They want to use the running back, Zach Evans and Quinshon Judkins. And a lot of Jackson Dart's passing yards in the last game came off of 3 huge touchdowns. A touchdown of 61 yards, 71 yards, and 72 yards. That's 45% of his yards. 3 touchdowns over 60 yards is not sustainable. Auburn also has a terrible run defense. They allow the 29th most yards in the country. They're 21st worst in defensive rush explosive rate. So Ole Miss can get back to running the ball here. Give me that under.
Matt, do you have any picks that you really like today? And I will say that Prize Picks occasionally on the weekends will do like a free square where they give you something that's going to happen, like basically unless a meteor hits. And the one this weekend is Steph Curry to score over a half point. So Steph Curry scores a point in their exhibition game this weekend. So you can toss that in there with it, parlay, win a little extra money.
Yeah, I've got a bunch. You want me to all of them?
Go right through them. Tell us. Yeah, win us some money, Matt. Come on.
Chase Brown over on rushing yards, 114.5. We just heard Tommy DeVito is going to be back, so I think now that the defense does not have to focus solely on Chase Brown. He's actually also not gone over 114 rushing yards in one game against Charlotte too, which is not the defense you would have expected him not to go over, but he had 109 rushing yards. So still he was very close to that. He's gone over every single week. It's been one of the most productive college running backs. I think you can easily take this and feel good about yourself. Anthony Richardson, take the over on his interceptions at 0.5. I know this is like an Austin special here. He loves these interception lines. LSU has a good defense. Now, they're not great against the run. They're 55th, allowing 134 yards a game, but they are 27th against the pass. They've only allowed 7 pass touchdowns, just for you to know. Anthony Richards only has 5, does have 7 interceptions on the year. I think he's going to throw an interception. I do not think that Florida is as good as people are vaulting them up to be at 4-2, and I think LSU's defense is a little bit better than it's getting credit for. My other one is also on Anthony Richardson. Take the under on his combined pass and rush yards at 233.5. Now, I will say I've been wrong on this multiple times. Only gotten this right once. Usually when I say take the under, he goes over. When I say take the over, take the under. So just throwing everything out there so you guys know what to do with it, but I don't think he has a great game today against a good LSU defense. And my last
And
one.
For the record,
Okay.
Matt told me he was going the under on that today, and I took the over on Anthony Richardson's fantasy points.
Smart
So
man.
thank you, Matt.
Anthony Richardson.
There's the real
is
free square.
Is Matt's kryptonite.
He really is. Except for when it comes to him being a draft prospect. And so last but not least, my favorite one, Tanner McKee. Take the over on his -3.5 rushing yards. They're playing Notre Dame, who has actually been fairly good outside of their loss to Marshall. Their defense has really stepped it up. And in the past 3 games, Tanner McKee's rushing yards consist of -12, -33 against Washington, who I do not think is nearly as good a defense as Notre Dame, and -16 against Oregon. Again, another defense I don't think is as good as Notre Dame's. I think Notre Dame is going to be able to get after Tanner McKee today. He's going to have more than 3 or 4 negative rushing yards. Take the over. He is going to get sacked a bunch today against Notre Dame.
That line stood out to me. I thought that was going to be like 8.5, 9.5, 10.5. Usually in overmatched kind of matchups, that's what you see is that rushing yard line. Yeah, I really like the under on that too, or less, or whatever. Yeah. So I've got a couple that I'm going to toss out here that I like. Last week I talked about the Bijan Robinson kind of. They'll do like rushing / receiving yards. You can combine them. I said that his was the lock of the week last week. He hit it pretty easily. I've got another rush plus receiving lock for you, and that's going to be Jaden Ott, who we talked about earlier, that true freshman running back at Cal. His line right now, rush / reception yards at 118.5. Now, he's only done that twice this year. But the volume that he's getting has increased significantly to the point where he is now basically the bell cow there. He's going to get the majority of the touches in what should be, if not a blowout, a convincing win for Cal there against Colorado. They're terrible defensively. We chronicled that earlier. They can't stop a nosebleed. Every team just runs and runs and runs on them, and they have no hope of stopping it. And he gets receiving volume too. Like, he's had 2 or more receptions in every game this year. So, he's probably going to get some receiving volume as well. Last game, like, he had 70 yards on the ground and 40 through the air. He wouldn't have technically hit that 118.5, but it was a much tougher opponent. Washington State, the game before that, was his 200-plus yard game on the ground. I think he hits, 140, 150 combined yards here today. I actually didn't look at what his fantasy points line is, but I would imagine I'm probably taking the over on that as well. And if you're not really it's 19.5. I like the over on that. And if you're not feeling the you just want to do rush yards, his rush yards line is at 101.5. And I like the over on every single one of those. I think he hits it, barring injury. He'll hit every single one of those lines. The other ones that I like here this week, Michael Mayer's line is at 15.5 points. PrizePicks is full PPR.
Yeah.
And Mayer he gets double-digit targets almost every single week there in that offense. Drew Pine, since he's come in, has loved Michael Mayer. He's hit 20-plus fantasy points in 3 of his last 4 games. I really, really, really like that line. I think he, 6-7 catches for him and then some yardage gets him there. You don't even really need to throw in a touchdown, but I think he can get a touchdown there as well. And then, as I said, I'm taking the over on Anthony Richardson fantasy points today. 17.5 points. I think they're going to be down. I think he's going to be running around a lot. I think he's a lock for that. Luke's in the comments here. He says he likes Travis Dye over 100.5 receiving plus rushing yards. It's an interesting line there. Only 1 game under 100 yards rushing. Utah's front 7, solid. What do you guys think on that line? Colin, you like that over 100.5?
Yeah, I do. For the combined, absolutely. I mean, he gets involved a little bit in the pass game, as well. And he has been kind of the exception to Lincoln Riley. Lincoln Riley kind of likes to have like a couple running backs in a rotation, but he's really been leaning on Travis Dye, and he's been a big portion of this offense as well. And like Chris Moxley just said in the chat, Utah front 7 is wimpy. They have a better pass defense than they do a rush defense. So yeah, I think that's a good call, Todd or Luke.
Yeah, I mean, we just saw Luke Todd, the same person. We saw UCLA run all over all Utah last week. So if you're getting 100.5 for rushing and receiving yards, I don't think Travis Dye gets a ton of receiving yards, but you're giving yourself 2 ways to get over 101 yards or get to 101 yards. I think it's possible. I'd take it too.
Yeah, those lines with multiple outs feel nice. You're not relying on touchdown variance or something like that to necessarily bump you over the top. Todd says thank you for saying they're the same person. Also really happy that Chris Moxley has the the opportunity to chat in the chat here with us, but couldn't be here with us this morning. Thank you, Chris.
Well, like Chris said earlier, let Colin cook. He's unleashing me.
We are coming down the home stretch here, guys. This is Campus to Canton show here on Bettor Sports Network. If you guys have any final thoughts on any of the lines that we're betting today, drop them in the chat. Give us a call. We won't take too much of your time. We'll hear what you guys think. Let us know why we're right or wrong. Coming up at 10 a.m. here, guys. Homecoming show. Corey Parson, Tom Casale, they're going to take you through the kickoff of these games. If you want to follow us somewhere else, we're going to be over on our YouTube channel doing our other morning show. We talk 4 hours of football every Saturday morning. Good times. Let's pick some games here, guys. We've been teasing some of these bigger matchups. Let's put our money where our mouth is here. Not $100 on Texas to make the playoff kind of money, but let's see what we've got going on here. So Michigan, Penn State. We already know what Colin's going to pick. 7-point favorite, Michigan. Colin?
I'm contractually obligated to say Penn State. But no, I do like Penn State +7 here. I think that's the move. If you are a Penn State homer like me, going to ride on that money line a little bit. But I think the +7 line is really nice. I've been saying it all week. I think that's too big. This line was, Michigan won by 4 last year. This is going to be a tightly contested game, very run heavy. The big factor is, like Matt pointed out earlier when we were talking about it, Michigan is good at creating turnovers. Sean Clifford needs to limit the turnovers in this one. If he doesn't, then Penn State's going to lose. If he does, then I think Penn State could win this. But either way, I'm taking +7.
Matt?
So I don't know if you guys heard that knocking earlier. We thought that was Austin's cleaning lady. It was actually a Falcon that dropped off this note here to me, and it says, "Take Penn State +7, or the AM is coming for you," which I can only assume is the Amish Mafia. So I'm with Colin. He's upset some people up there in the Wawas and the Sheets and the donut place. I forgot what it's called. But the Amish Mafia is coming for us now because Colin had to open his mouth. I'm actually going to ride with Penn State in the points here. I do think it's going to be a close game.
Yeah, I'm going to as well. I don't have anything to add, so we'll just move on to the next one here.
Fair point. I was going to say it was a text, but then I realized they don't have phones, so that's why I had to.
It's a good call. I like
almost outsmarted yourself.
Paper. Yeah, almost.
Texas, Iowa State here. Texas, number 22 in the country. They've got Quinn Ewers back. They're a 15.5-point favorite in this one. Colin, what do you think?
I am taking Texas with the 15.5 points here. Look, Iowa State is just an atrocious offense here. I mean, even they're normally a very good run offense here, but they're terrible in that this year. They also rank 116th in the country in points for. 106 or 103rd in points per game. I'm sorry. So they're a terrible offense. They don't run the ball well like they normally do. Their defense is good, but I think Texas with Quinn Ewers is just better. So I think Texas can blow them out in this one.
Is their defense good? Because they haven't played anybody. The best offense they've played is arguably Iowa. I'm just kidding. It was probably Kansas who was able to put 14 points on it. But even then, I think I'm taking Texas in the points here as well. Quinn Ewers back. He looked good in that Oklahoma game. I know Oklahoma down and out, but you know what? So is Iowa State after Quinn Ewers throws for 3 touchdowns by halftime, and it's 21-3 because Iowa State can't move the ball. And then we've seen that just starts to trickle, and those teams start to continue to go, and then it just piles on a la Georgia, Oregon in week 1. I'm taking Texas in the points, and King Quinn, praise him be.
So is this going to be a Texas statement game? Like, even if they don't win by, last week they won 49-0 against Oklahoma, but Oklahoma,
hype them up, Austin. Yes,
Oklahoma's down bad. Oklahoma's a much worse team than Iowa State. I'm taking Iowa State in the points here.
Debatable.
I think you make a good point. If Texas gets a couple of touchdowns here, can Iowa State open it up? Can they respond? I think that's a fair point. But I just don't think Texas is going to move the ball that effectively. I just don't. I think Iowa State's going to contain them. I think they're going to hold them to field goals instead of touchdowns. I think that's going to hurt Texas pretty significantly here, with taking the points. I like that 15.5.
Serious question. Is the hefty lefty that much of a better quarterback than Bevel at Oklahoma? The answer is no. It's a
Bevel's terrible.
So is Hunter Deckers.
Bevel was the third QB on the depth chart at Pitt last year. When I saw that he was transferring, I was like, he's going to go to, I don't know, insert like Incarnate Word or something would be the kind, or like Middle Tennessee State. The fact that he ended up at Oklahoma and actually touched the field is just amazing.
Look,
the fact that they went Wildcat.
I was at that game last week. Maybe Iowa State should try some Wildcats. All I'm saying. At least we know Hunter Deckers can run the ball, right? Like, I'm just saying.
Glorified running back out there. People in the comment, Hunter Deckers or Brock Purdy?
Brock Purdy. I know we can sling it.
It's kind of looking like Brock Purdy, as bad as that is to say.
That's so bad to say, but it's kind of true. Like, serious question. If Brock Purdy was the quarterback today, the line would not be 15.5. It would probably be 7. Am I wrong in saying that?
You heard it here first. Brock Purdy is worth 8.5 more points.
Let's go.
Than Hunter Deckers. Alabama, Tennessee. We've talked a lot about this. Tennessee, it's 8.5 now. It hasn't moved any more than that. It did move that half point early this morning. We have confirmation. If you missed it, Bryce Young is playing. He will start at quarterback for Alabama. Cedric Tillman, star wide receiver at Tennessee, confirmed out. That's the information that we have for injury. I think everything else we kind of already know about this game. What do we like here, Colin?
I still like Tennessee in the points here in this one. I mean, even with Bryce Young playing, there's a question, how effective is he going to be? It was a shoulder injury. Can he make Tennessee respect them over the top? Because Texas A&M did not respect the Alabama offense over the top last week, and it turned into a grinded out game that came down at the very end. And I think even 75% of Bryce Young is still better than all 100% of Jalen Milroe, but Tennessee is also better than Texas A&M. So Tennessee's offense, the key is going to be get the ball out quick, limit those Alabama pass rushers' effectiveness. And if they can do that, I like Tennessee plus 9 or what, 9.5 now?
It's 8.5.
Plus 8.5. Yeah. I think Bama wins the game, but give me the points with Tennessee.
Yeah, I'm taking Tennessee in the points as well. I think this is going to be a close game. I get that Texas A&M didn't respect Jalen Milroe, and so that's why that was a close game. I also don't think Tennessee's defense is quite as good as Texas A&M, so I do think that they'll try to find ways to slow down that running attack, even if Bryce Young is not super effective. But I think you have to respect him, and I think, again, Nick Saban is not considered the greatest coach in college football for no reason. Like, he's earned that moniker. They'll find ways to throw things at Hendon Hooker in this offense that they're not ready for, that I think is going to slow them down as well. Though I do think Alabama probably wins this game. If you're feeling a little bit spicy, if you threw $100 down on Texas to make the playoffs, maybe you throw a little bit of money down on the Tennessee money line, because I do think that they can pull the upset. But if you want the safe money, don't lose money line, you're taking Tennessee in the points.
I'm assuming if you have $100 to throw on Texas winning the national championship, you own a lake house or something. So
let's go.
Just flushing money down the toilet at this stage. So I'm going to go the opposite direction here. Even though we talked about Tennessee, I think you guys highlighted the reasons very, very well. And I think we already assumed that Bryce Young was playing based on where this line was at. Yeah. This, to me, feels like one of those games where Alabama comes out and they say, not so fast. We're still here. We are still those big guys. I mean, the last time we saw Bryce Young, they absolutely were crushing Arkansas. And I think that image is already out of people's heads because Bryce Young got hurt. They let Arkansas come back, and then at the end, they pulled away because of Jahmyr Gibbs. He had those 2 long touchdown runs. But they were cruising in that game. I think Alabama had started to figure it out. If Bryce Young is truly healthy here, we have to assume that he is. I think they come out in this game. I think they come out hot. Wouldn't surprise me if they score on their first 3 drives. They get 17 points off their first 3 drives. And if Tennessee doesn't match that, I think Tennessee's in for a long day. I think they're going to get after Hooker, as you were talking about. I think Tennessee's going to struggle to run the ball. They're going to be one-dimensional. I think it's a recipe for disaster for them. And I like watching Tennessee fans cry. I'm taking Alabama in this one. And I'm taking the 8.5 points too. And don't feel bad about it at all. TCU, 4.5-point favorite here. Oklahoma State. And it's at TCU.
Yeah.
Matt, what do you like here?
Oh, man. This is probably the hardest. Well, I think the second hardest one. The hardest one is USC Utah. I'm taking TCU in the points. I think that they win by a touchdown here against Oklahoma State. I don't feel like Oklahoma State has really played anybody that good outside of Baylor, but Baylor does not have the offense that TCU does. We talked about how bad both these defenses are. Oklahoma State 100th in EPA per pass, and TCU, I believe, 81st in EPA per pass. So, like, both these teams are allowing a ton of yards and points through the air. But I just think TCU is more explosive. And when it comes down to it, as crazy as this is to say, I actually trust Sonny Dykes and Max Duggan more than I do Spencer Sanders. While I don't think that Max Duggan is even as necessarily a good at quarterback as Spencer Sanders is, Sonny Dykes has just put him in the right situation. And Austin's Spencer Sanders plays poopy argument earlier really has gotten into my head, and I think he's going to do that against TCU today. So I think TCU wins by more than 4. I'm taking TCU.
I'm taking Oklahoma State and the points for sure. Like I said, I would even maybe throw in a little money line sprinkle on this one with Oklahoma State. I just think they're a better team. They beat a Texas Tech team as well, who I think Texas Tech is a pretty solid team as well. That is a good offense, that they beat there. So the line opened with Oklahoma State +1, so essentially a pick 'em there. It moved the other way. Not a great sign, given the way the public money flowed in on that one. But give me Oklahoma State. I got a good feeling.
I think I like the points here too. I think TCU can win this one, but this feels like a field goal difference to me, not necessarily 4.5 points. Explosive offenses. I don't feel great about the margin being super great when both teams can probably put up 35 plus. Like I don't know that those two things necessarily go together here. NC State Syracuse, we talked about it. This line has actually moved this morning. I just want to confirm it's still a 3 before we pick this. It was at 3.5. It's been at 4. It's moving all over the place. It's still a 3. So Syracuse is 3-point favorites in this one. Matt.
I'm taking NC State in the points. I think that, again, we talked about Syracuse has not played. They've been in defensive struggles against a team like Virginia, which we just talked about is not a good team. Like, their offense is horrible, and they were still able to put up 22 points against them. While I know not having Devin Leary is going to hurt for NC State, the one thing I will say is that kid was thrown out there in the middle of the game last week. Now they've had a whole week where they've likely known Leary's not playing. He's getting the first team snaps. Hopefully they've been able to build the offense around him. And NC State's defense is incredibly good. They are the second best defense behind Clemson in the ACC, in my opinion. I think they'll be able to slow down Sean Tucker and Garrett Schrader enough to keep this a close game. Syracuse may win, but I'm going to take NC State and the 3 because I think it could be that close of a game.
I'm taking the other side to this. I'm taking Syracuse and the points here. Like, I think Leary being out is huge. NC State was 81st in passing offense and 85th in run offense with Leary. That's not going to get better without him. Syracuse has a good defense. They 17th in pass yards allowed, 16th in rush yards, 9th in points allowed. That's just not a good matchup. And NC State is a very good defense. They are. I'm not arguing that at all. But they are susceptible to mobile quarterbacks. DJU put up 73 yards and 2 touchdowns against them. And he's not exactly, a dynamic rushing threat here. Jordan Travis, 100 rush yards last week. Garrett Schrader is a mobile quarterback. He is a guy who can take off and he can hurt you with his legs. I think Garrett Schrader is going to have a nice game in this. So give me Syracuse.
Yeah, Garrett Schrader, we talked a lot this offseason. Like he was essentially like a running back. Like he's basically playing Wildcat. Like the dude was barely completing 50% of his passes last year. And NA has done, just worked wonders with him there. He's looked much more competent as a passer. I think that's enough. He demands enough respect in that regard now where you can't just stack the box. I think Syracuse wins this one by more than 3. I do. I think, maybe a touchdown or so. Low scoring game. We talked about the game total on this one. It's at 42.5. maybe I kind of like the under on that.
I kind of do too.
Yeah. So maybe that's actually what I would play in that game if I was betting it. Mississippi State, 4-point favorite here against Kentucky. Kentucky, we called them fraudulent 2 weeks ago. And what did they do? They went out and lost 2 weeks in a row. Matt, what do you think here?
Give me Mississippi State. I think they're the better team. Will Rogers.
Give me Kentucky in this one, actually. Mississippi State beat a bad Texas A&M team. They beat a not great Arkansas team without KJ Jefferson. Their last game outside of Stark Vegas was LSU. They lost at that one. Like Matt said, Kentucky lost 2 in a row here. They get Levis back. They need a win at home. Give me Kentucky.
I'm taking Mississippi State. I like them this year. All right, guys, this has been Campus to Canton here. Stay tuned. Homecoming with Tom Casale and Corey Parsons coming up next. We're heading over to the Campus to Canton YouTube page. We will see you guys next week. Campus to Canton, Bettor Sports. Good luck, everybody, today.